Hi guys, welcome to Pure Yoga. Make sure you have a strap with you, either a yoga strap if you have one, or a dressing gown belt or a leather belt, anything that doesn't have any stretch in it, so none of the Dyna bands or anything like that, because they're too stretchy. Something that is quite firm and won't stretch when you hook it over your foot. So we're going to start laying down on the mat today. So bringing your feet to the top edge of the mat and your head to the opposite edge, and just make sure you have your strap handy at the side of you. And when you come to laying on the mat, take a moment just to adjust, find a comfy space for the lower spine, bring the legs apart, bring the hands down by the sides of the body and turn the palms up. Close the eyes, take a scan from the head down to the fingers, down to the toes, just having a little check-in with how your body feels and how it's arrived on the mat for practice. If you're noticing any tight spots, any injuries, be mindful of them as you move. With the eyes closed, start to concentrate on the breath, just noticing your own natural, automatic breathing pattern. Just allowing it to be right now, no judgment, just making sure that you're breathing as much as you can, either using the nose or the mouth. Then start to take those breaths a little deeper, maybe filling into the lower rib cage, maybe into the belly. And then as you breathe out, take a long breath out. Let everything become heavy to the mat on the out breath. And on the in breath, feel that lightness and lift. If you wish to just use the nose through the practice for breathing, or use the mouth on the exhale if you need to, if you're holding a cold or allergies. Bringing the feet together at the bottom of the mat, bringing the toes to touch, heels to touch. Push the lower back into the mat, draw the ribs and hips towards each other, and then lift the hands up towards the ceiling, and then slowly lower them to the back of the mat without flaring the ribs. And try and keep that lower back pushed into the floor. You may notice the hands are either hovering off the mat, or you can take the arms into full flexion and the hands can touch. The aim here is to keep that lower back pushed down and the rib and hips tethered and that core engaged. Then lift the hands back up and over and bring them back flat to the mat, palms facing down. Take a bend into both knees. Don't bring the feet too close to the bum. We're going to take a little bit of pelvic tilting. So disassociation of the top and bottom of the spine. Shoulders stay quiet, but you push the shoulder sockets down towards the floor. And then feel like you're drawing the pubic bone towards the rib cage, a slight movement. So the rib and hips start to tether. And then take it in the opposite direction. Push your tailbone down. And then feel like you're dragging your tailbone back towards your shoulder blades, and you flare through that rib cage slightly and arch into the lower back. Take it back into the opposite direction, so you're pushing your lower back into the floor, and you're lifting the pubic bone towards the rib cage, keeping the feet flat, the hands flat, shoulders relaxed. Take it back into the opposite direction, so you're dragging that tailbone back towards those shoulder blades, and you're flaring and stretching around the belly. One more time in both directions. Pubic bone comes towards the rib cage, lower back flattens. Tailbone maybe lifts slightly away from the mat. And then opposite direction, tailbone drags towards those shoulder blades. And that lower belly drops a little, stretching through those abdominals. And then bring that spine back to a neutral place, flat or slightly arched back. We're going to take a little protraction and retraction of the shoulders now, keeping the lower part of the spine quiet. Reach the arms up towards the ceiling, fingertips to point up. Reach far forward with the fingers as much as you can to the ceiling. So you're then pushing the chest into that space between the shoulder blades, slightly making a roundness of that upper spine. And then drag your shoulder sockets back and squeeze your shoulder blades together and flare the chest slightly, as though you're taking an arch in between those shoulder blades to take it into retraction. And then push those shoulder blades back up and that centre of the shoulder blades back into the mat, and reach high up through the fingertips. 2 more in both directions. So squeezing the shoulder blades back and flaring the chest. Retraction of the shoulders. Opposite way, taking it into protraction. Reaching as high with the fingertips as you can and pushing back with the chest. 1 more, both directions. Squeeze the shoulder blades back and flare the chest. And then send the fingertips high and protract the shoulders, and the chest pushes back. Then bringing those hands back down by the sides of the body, bring the feet in a little further towards the bum, hip width apart. We're going into some rolling bridges and then into flexion. So pushing into the feet, slowly curl up through that spine, 1 vertebra at a time. And as you get to the top of the mat and the top of the push and the top of the inhale, squeeze the bum. And on an exhale, slowly let that spine roll back down towards the mat. And when the bum touches on the end of your exhale, an inhale brings the knees to the chest and the forehead to the knees and squeeze. And your exhale brings the feet, head and shoulders and hands back to the mat. Your next breath in, roll back up through that spine, 1 vertebra at a time, pushing into all parts of the feet, keeping the knees hip width apart. Squeeze the bum at the top of the inhale, and as you exhale, slowly lower that back to the floor. Bottom of your exhale, your bum touches, and your inhale, knees come to chest and forehead to knees and squeeze. And your exhale brings you back, feet to floor, hands to mat. 1 more time, going up into extension of the spine on the inhale, squeeze at the top of the inhale and the bum, and then slowly lower that spine back to the mat to bring that spine back to a neutral place. Your next inhale, you bring the knees into the chest and we take the spine into flexion, and your exhale, the feet come back to the mat and the hands back to the floor for neutral spine. Keeping your left knee bent and left foot on the floor, straighten your right leg up towards the ceiling and push the heel away and the toes back towards the shins. Then take circles with that foot in a anti-clockwise direction, making those circles nice and slow. Getting movement into that hip, into that socket. Try and keep the toes back. And when you've done 3, take it in a clockwise direction, trying to keep the pelvis as neutral as you can, just taking the movement through the leg, just finding a little mobility around that hip. And the next time you've done around about 3 circles, just that heel point up, toes back to the shins. Take a hold of that right leg with both hands and walk the hands up that right leg, bringing your shoulders and head away from the spine, taking the hands as high as they'll go up that leg and then drawing it in towards the chest and the chest towards the thigh. Taking that hamstring stretch down the back of that right leg. And then slowly let the shoulders come back down to the mat. Keep that right leg lifted. Bring the hands back to the floor. Then pushing into your left foot, raise the hips up towards the ceiling, keeping that leg straight, pointing up. Then on an out breath, lower the hips to a hovering space. We're going to take 2 more of these. Lift the hips, push into that left foot, squeeze that left bum cheek, and out breath, lower back and hover off the mat so the back doesn't fully touch. 1 more time, push into the left foot, raise those hips high, heel of the right foot high, and slowly lower those hips, this time all the way to the mat. Bring your right ankle onto the top of the left thigh and turn the knee out. Bring your left knee in towards you, not using the hands if you can. And then hold that figure 4 position, trying to push the left knee into the right foot, resisting with the right foot and pushing back into the left knee. Holding that hip flexor strength on the left leg, external rotation of the right leg. And then if you're happy to point that left heel up towards the ceiling and straighten through the left leg, taking the hamstring stretch on that left side. Still pushing that left thigh into the right foot and resisting back, using some muscle strength to hold the pose. 1 more breath in this position. And then bringing that left foot back to the mat. Bring the arms out to a T shape, palms facing down. And then push the hips to your right side and drop that right foot down to the left side of the mat. Keeping your right shoulder grounded if you can. And once that right foot touches or comes somewhere close, take the left hand onto the right knee and pull that knee down towards the chest, tucking your tailbone towards your left heel and lifting your belly towards the rib cage. Maybe send the gaze of the eyes to the right hand and just try and breathe into the pose, encouraging the right knee as close as it can towards you. 1 more breath here. And then let that right knee come back up, left hand back to the floor. Bring both knees back to the centre. Move the hips back to a neutral place and your right foot down to meet your left foot. Bring the hands back by the side of the body. This time your left heel points up. Toes of the left foot back to the shins. Take circles with that leg slowly in that anti-clockwise direction, trying to keep nice and steady around the pelvis, just taking the movement from the long limb, taking 3 circles in your anti-clockwise direction, and when you've done 3 in that way, take it the other direction, clockwise. Try and keep that heel pushing up, toes drawing back. 3 times in this position. And that last circle. And then let that leg still point up to the ceiling. Bring the hands onto the back of the leg. Start to walk the hands up that leg. Bringing that chest towards the thigh and the thigh towards the chest. Drawing that knee a little closer on every out breath. And then lower that head and shoulders back to the mat. Bring the hands down by the sides of the body. We're going to lift and lower 3 times by pushing into the right foot and lifting the hips. On an in-breath, push into the right foot, squeeze the right bum cheek, lift the hips up high, keeping the legs straight. On an out-breath, lower towards a hovering space. Don't let the lower back touch the mat. 2 more slow movements. Squeeze the bum as you lift and lower nice and slow back to a hover. Last one, lift the bum back up to as high as you can by squeezing the right bum cheek, and this time lower the bum all the way to the mat and bring your left ankle onto the top of the right thigh. Turn the left knee out, toes of the left foot back to the shin, and then lift your right leg up and away from the mat, squeezing the right knee into the left ankle and resist with that foot and push back. Really thinking about the hip flexor strength on that right leg, the external rotation on your left hip, resisting from the push of the foot into the knee and the knee into the foot. Help strengthen all the muscles throughout the legs. Then if you're happy to point that right heel up to the ceiling, taking a hamstring stretch down the back of that right leg, pushing that leg a little closer towards you if you can. You'll feel the strength of these thighs having to switch on because you're not using any external help by grabbing that leg with the hands. We're keeping them down by the side of you so they're not getting involved. We're just using muscle strength. And then taking a bend back into that right knee and plant that right foot on the mat, keeping your left foot where it is. Bring your arms out to a T shape, palms facing down. Move your hips to the left. Drop your left foot to the right side of the mat, keeping both shoulders down on the floor. And once that left foot is planted to the right side, maybe bring your right hand onto the top of the left knee and squeeze that leg in towards you as much as you can. Took your tailbone again towards your right heel this time, and lift your lower belly towards your rib cage. All the time creating space across the chest, maybe gazing towards that left hand to take that cervical spine rotation. Then bringing your right hand back to T shape, lifting the knees back to centre. And when they come back to centre, neutralise the hips back into the middle. Bring your left foot to meet the right foot. And then let the knees drop out to the side, soles of the feet stay together. Keep pushing the lower back into the mat. Keep the core engaged. And just allow those knees to rock a little from side to side. Then bringing those knees back into the middle. Take a hold of your strap now, unless you can reach the big toe with your fingers. If not, hook the strap over the right foot and just let it sit in the arch of the foot. Take a hold of the right strap, the strap with the right hand, and then just place your left hand out for a counterbalance. Left knee stays bent for a little more support. And then on an out breath, allow that right leg to come out to the side and down towards the floor on the right side of the mat. Keep sending your left knee out to the left side to try and find a little counterbalance so your hip of your left doesn't roll over to the right side. Feeling the groin stretch on that inner right thigh. Remember, if you want to use fingertips to big toe, feel free to go there. But if that's not accessible, hold on to the strap just to make the length of that arm seem a little longer. Try and keep that left hip down as much as you can, or the left back body down as much as you can. And just breathe into those tight spots of that inner right thigh. Just one more breath here. And then using those inner adductors to lift that right leg back up. We've just stretched them. Now we're using them for strength to bring the leg back high. Bring your left foot to thread in now to the strap and bring your right foot down to the mat. And take hold of your strap in the left hand. If, like me, you haven't got the space, maybe you need to move over slightly to make space on that left side. Right hand comes out as your counterbalance. Right knee stays bent. And then let that left foot come down to the left side of the mat. Let your right knee drop out slightly to keep that right hip pointing up to the ceiling. And then just let the movement happen by using the breath. Every out breath, think about them sensations of tightness. See whether you're holding something that you could possibly let go of. Quite often it's the mind talking to the muscle, telling it to protect itself when we first go into stretch. And once that leg is happy and it feels like you're not going to hurt it, your breath can be a tool to help it go a little deeper into the pose. This is the importance of using the breath in yoga, using the awareness and the perception of where your body is in space. Just one more breath with that openness through that left inner thigh. We're stretching it at the moment. And then on your next in-breath, use the strength of that same muscle we've just stretched to lift that left leg back up towards the ceiling. Release that strap, bring the left foot back to meet the right foot and just place that strap by the side of you. And if you've had to move over, bring yourself back centre to the mat. Bringing the hands down by the sides of the body and the knees in towards the chest. We're going to point the heels up towards the ceiling on an inhale. Keep the lower back pushed into the mat. And on an exhale, bring those legs down to as much as a hover as you can take it to, with the lower back not lifting. On an in-breath, bring the knees back in towards the chest and the heels up towards the ceiling. And on an out breath, bring it to a hover again, keeping the lower back pushed into the floor. Your next breath in, bring those knees back in, doing a water wheel with the legs. The heels up to the ceiling, all on an in-breath. And your out breath is when you lengthen those limbs and bring them to a hover. One more, bring the knees in towards the chest. Heels up to the ceiling on an inhale. And your exhale, you'll bring those legs back to a hover. Again, bring the knees in towards the chest. This time, hug the knees in. Bring the forehead to the knees and squeeze yourself into flexion and stretch that lower back. Then releasing those feet back to the mat. Bring the arms this time to cactus arms, palms facing up. Heel toe the feet out to the edges of the mat, keeping the knees dropped into the centre. Make sure your spine is neutral. And then taking your knees to the right, your gaze to the left, and keep everything grounded through the shoulders. The chest stays pointing up. The gaze can be towards that left elbow. Then if you want to take it slightly deeper, bring your right foot onto the top of the left knee and use the weight of that right leg to maybe bring that left knee down a little closer towards the mat. Try not to let the lower back arch too much. Feel the little bit of rib and hip tether. And as you do that, maybe you feel a stretch more in that left thigh, into that muscle that connects to your IT band. Just getting all those parts that we're strengthening stretched out now. One more breath in this space. Then bring your right foot back to the side of the mat. Bring your knees back into the centre and just let yourself internally rotate those hips for a moment. We're going to take it to the other side. So taking your knees to the left, your gaze to the right, and let those knees drop down. And try and think about, again, the safety of the lower back by tucking your tailbone towards that right heel. If you want to take it deeper, bring your left foot onto the top of the right knee. Encourage it a little lower by the weight of that left leg. All the time tethering those ribs and hips. The gaze now maybe is towards that right elbow, keeping that cervical spine mobile. Rotating from left to right sides when we change the legs. Just one more breath here. Then release that left foot back to the edge of the left side of the mat. Bring the knees back into a centre space and let the knees drop internally for a couple of breaths. Bringing the feet together and then bringing the knees in towards the chest, and take the elbows to the inside of the knees. Take a hold of the ankles, shins, outside of feet or big toes with the index and middle finger. And then let the right heel stack over the right knee, the left heel stack over the left knee. Then squeeze the thighs to the outside of the rib cage, the knees towards the armpits, the soles of the feet pointing up. And then just see if you can drag your tailbone a little down towards the mat. Push those shoulder sockets in towards the floor. Keep the head supported by the mat. And just try and compress through those hip flexors as you draw those thighs a little further to the outside of the rib cage. Breathe into the posture. Remember, your breath is your toolkit to help you go deeper. Then bring the feet back together, the knees back together and the elbows to the outside of the knees. Either keep a hold of where you're holding on to or move them slightly further up the legs. As you start to straighten through the legs, pushing the heels away, the toes back towards the shins to get that stretch down that posterior chain of the legs. All the time trying to keep your tailbone down, not lifted. Your heels pushing up, your toes drawing back. Your gaze can be to where the toe tips are or wherever they wish to be, maybe to the kneecaps, maybe to the ceiling. And then we're going to open the legs out nice and wide to get the stretch on those inner thighs, keeping a hold of where you're grabbing, or if you need to move them higher, move them higher. Open the legs out nice and wide, still keeping the toes back, heels pushing away, engaging the upper thighs to straighten those legs a little more. Bring those legs back together in the center. Release the fingers, then bring the palms together and just let the feet stack then over the hips. So we're going to lift and lower with the head and shoulders, trying to bring the fingertips towards the toes on every exhale. Take a breath in. On an out breath, lift the shoulders and head. In breath, lengthen that spine and lower back down. 4 more, lift and reach for the toes, exhale. Inhale and come back. 2 more. Exhale as you lift. Inhale as you lower. Last one. Exhale as you lift. And inhale as you lower. Bring the hands back down to the mat, keeping the legs straight. We're going to lift and lower through the bum, so shoulders stay relaxed. On an exhale, push the heels up. On an inhale, lower back down. Exhale, push. Inhale, back down. 3 more. Push, exhale. Inhale, back down. Try to reach as far with the heels to the ceiling. And back down. Last one, push. And lower. Bring the knees into a bend. Keep the feet together and separate the knees wide. Bring the hands together, palms facing towards each other. We're going to lift and lower with the knees bent. So we're going to try and reach beyond the toes. Take a breath in. On an out breath, reach towards those toes or maybe beyond. Inhale, lower. 3 more. Exhale, lift. Inhale, lower. 2 more. Exhale, lift. Inhale, lower. Last one. Exhale, lift. And inhale, lower. Take a hold of the knees, bring them back together in the center. As you inhale, push the knees away. As you exhale, open the knees out wide and then bring them back towards the chest. Inhale, push the knees away. Exhale, open the knees out and back towards the chest. 2 more that direction. Inhale away. Exhale, draw them back. One more, inhale away, mobility through the hips. Exhale, draw them back. This time opposite direction. Inhale, open the knees and push away. Exhale, draw back. 3 more. Inhale, open knees and push away. Exhale, draw back. 2 more. Open and push. And draw back. Last one. Inhale, push away. Exhale, draw back. Squeeze the knees in towards you. And then plant the feet on the mat. Roll over onto your right side and allow your knees to stack, your heels to stack, your hands and shoulders to stack. 90-degree angles from hips to knees and knees to ankles. We're going to lift and lower our hand on the inhale. On a breath in, open the left hand up to the ceiling and then down towards the mat on the left side. Knees stay together. Exhale, bring that hand back to meet the right. 3 more. Inhale, open and lower. Exhale, back to meet the right. Thoracic extension. 2 more. Inhale, lift. Long, slow, easy breaths. And exhale and lower. Last one this side. Inhale, lift. Open that chest to the ceiling. And exhale. Lower that left hand back to meet the right. Turn onto the back. We'll take a bridge pose first. So neutralise the hips in the centre. Hands down by the floor. Feet hip width apart. On an inhale, push into the feet. Raise the hips up. And as you get to your highest point, squeeze the bum, hold that space. Try not to let the knees drop out to the sides. Try and keep them hip width apart. Create some space across the back of the neck. Squeeze the bum a little more to lift the hips maybe a little higher. And then on your out breath, slowly lower the hips back to the mat. And when the bum meets the mat, roll onto your left side and stack everything up like we did on the right. If you need to make space, make space. Knees 90-degree angle from the hips, heels 90-degree angles from the knees. Everything stacked. On an inhale, lift the right hand up, over and back to the right side of the mat. On an exhale, bring that right hand back up and back to meet the left. 3 more. Open, lift on the inhale and down to the mat. Exhale, send it back. 2 more. Open, create space across the chest and an extension of the thoracic spine. And take it back to meet the left. Last one. Lift, create space, lengthen the front body. And exhale, bring it back to meet the left. Roll onto your back. Make sure everything is neutral in the centre of the mat. Bring the hands down by the sides of the body. And put the weight into the feet. Slowly curl up through that spine, 1 vertebra at a time. And when you get to your highest point, squeeze the bum. Push firmly into the hands. This time, if you wish to roll the shoulder blades together and bring the hands to interlace underneath the bum, push those little fingers into the mat. Push the heels and the ball of the foot into the floor. Create the space across the back of the neck and between the shoulders and the ears. Try not to let the knees splay apart. Keep pushing, keep lifting. Keep breathing easy in that space. And then releasing the hands. Slowly uncurling down one vertebra at a time, bringing the bum back towards the floor. And when that bum touches, bring the feet together at the bottom and let the knees drop out to the sides. Bring the arms to cactus arms, palms facing up. Keep pushing the lower back into the mat. We're just going to take a little bit of internal and external rotation of the shoulders. On an in-breath, lift the hands up towards the ceiling and then down towards the mat, bringing the palms flat and turning the shoulders down. And then take it back opposite direction and take the back of the hands back to the mat. So we're just moving in and out of cactus arms, lifted and lowered. Elbows and tops of the arms stay flat on the mat. Take it again, moving those shoulders in all their range of movement. And take it back to cactus arms. One more, both directions, really working those shoulder sockets. And bring it back to cactus arms. Bring the knees back together in the center. Bring the hands down by the sides of the body, palms facing down. Bring the feet long to the ends of the mat, toes and heels to touch. Then push the lower back into the mat, rib and hip tether. Raise the hands up towards the ceiling and then back beyond the back of the mat. Try not to let the ribs flare. Take an interlace of the fingers. A little lateral flexion before we finish. Take the feet over to the right, maybe left foot hooking over the right foot. And take the hands over, keeping both the shoulder blades and the sit bones grounded. Taking that half moon shape, stretching down the left side body, contracting down the right side body. And try and breathe into that rib cage on that left side. Relaxing the shoulders, relaxing the muscles across the face. The only thing that should really be contracting is the muscles on that right side torso. And let's take it back to center. So bring the hands back to the middle, the feet back to the middle. Keep that lower back pushed down. Stop the ribs from flaring. Then take the feet to the left, maybe right foot hooking over that left leg. And then take the hands across, shoulders and sit bones down. Relax the shoulders. Breathe into that right rib cage, expanding and lengthening that tissue along that right side body, or that connective tissue that goes from the big toe all the way up to the top of the head and to the fingertips. And then bringing those hands back to a center position, bringing the feet back to center, bringing the hands back up and over the head, turning this time the palms up, taking the hands slightly away from the body. Separate the feet to the width of the mat and just let the toes drop to the outside edges of the mat to open up through the hips. The palms facing up and the fingers gently curled opens the shoulders. Maybe have a little rock of those hips from side to side, just massaging that spine a little bit in the lower back. Close the eyes. Relax the muscles in the face and take yourself to your happy place for a few moments. Wherever that happy place may be is a place that makes you feel relaxed, feel calm. That place where you feel chilled. Visiting it through visualization can make you feel as good as being there with the human physical body. you wish to stay here for a little longer, pause me now. And if you're coming out with me, wriggle the fingers, the toes, rotate wrists, maybe ankles. If you want to take a full body stretch, reach the hands up and over the head. Bring the feet together, point through the toes, the fingers, flare the lower back and flare those ribs. And then bring the hands back up and over, draw the knees in towards the chest. Maybe have a little rock of that body from side to side. And then rolling onto your right side, take a moment in that side position, fetal position. And then pushing into the hand and lifting yourself up to a seat. And when you arrive in a seat, either cross-legged or on the knees, bring the hands onto the top of the thighs. Take a close of the eyes. Just take a moment here to have a little gratitude for everything that's around you and everybody within your life. Then on an in-breath, raise the hands to the ceiling, palms together at the top. On an out-breath, bring the hands to the chest and a soft gaze towards the floor. Breathe in wisdom and peace. Breathe out love and joy. Namaste.